Hello, welcome to the EN Indie Conference 2023. I look forward to seeing many of you later on for the awards, but first of all we've got plenty of insightful panel sessions to get through. Our first one is a very nice calm one to ease you into the day. It's how to maintain calm on site. And we've got a great panel today. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Start with you, Ian.
Hi, I'm Ian Solomon, Ops Director at Hive Group. I've been stressed at work for 26 years, not. But yeah, I've worked on a lot of our biggest UK shows, and I do shows abroad in Houston, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Rotterdam and Berlin.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen Moon, I'm the Chief Exec and Founder of Eventwell. I've been stressed for 26 years, and now we pretty much help people to be a little bit less stressed. So we put quiet rooms and resilient spaces into exhibitions, conferences, events, all types of events really. With neuro-inclusion, neurodiversity at the heart, but obviously spaces that are good for every attendee to be able to take those 10-15 minutes. So thanks for joining us.
I'm Matthew Lambert, I'm the Managing Director of Maelstrom Events. We are an outsourced ops company, running about 50 events a year, which can be quite stressful. So yeah, that's us.
Cool. Obviously the events industry can be a very hectic and full-on environment, that's why many of us love it, but obviously I think mental health and staying calm on site is something that we often overlook. But yeah, I'll come to you first, Helen. Like, what do you sort of look out for on site, and obviously you have a slightly different role to Ian and Matt, if you want to talk us through what kind of steps are on site for looking out for event props.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's for us, the whole idea of what we do and Eventwell services and how we take care of people is being able to provide that space where people can just have a think about a little bit of balance. So what we understand about stress at Eventwell is first and foremost there's two different types of stress. Not all stress is negative. There's positive stress and there's negative stress. So your negative stress is distress, your positive stress is eustress. Organising events, attending events is eustress. It's supposed to be positive stress. I really hope that the majority of the people that sat in this room aren't experiencing distress every time they're organising or putting on an event. If so, there might be time to have a little think. Majority of the time I'm on site and our team are on site, we're experiencing eustress, positive stress. So that's when you get the tingles, you get the nervous, the expectations, it's excitement, but also there's nerves and anticipation about things that might happen during that time. Our support is all about kind of providing that space where people can just go and sit, they can take a breather, they can counteract what's happening within their bodies in terms of the stress system and how that operates, and just balance and breathe and find some time. But for us, it's about the biology of stress as well. So we're all human beings, which means we all have biology. So has anybody heard of the stress response? No? The fight, flight, freeze? You've all heard of fight, flight, freeze? Okay, so that's your stress response. The actual proper name for the stress response is your sympathetic nervous system. So your stress response is within your autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is one half, but every action has an equal or opposite reaction in science. So the other half of the sympathetic nervous system is the parasympathetic nervous system, and that is your rest and digest. So better managing stress is understanding that when the sympathetic nervous system has been triggered, whether that's distress or eustress, then we need to counterbalance that by triggering the parasympathetic nervous system so that we can find what we call homeostasis in human biology, and that's when breathe rate, heart rate, everything returns to normal and we feel much more relaxed and calm. So that's your secret ingredient. So I encourage everybody to go and do some homework after this session and go and learn about your autonomic nervous system, and then learn a little bit about stress. Okay, that it's not all negative, it's positive. It's supposed to be exhilarating, exciting, motivating and challenging in our industry. I don't know anybody in our industry, we've both said that we've been stressed for 26 years or for a long time, and then Matt as well, the majority of that time has been positive stress. We thrive off it. I thrive off the stress I experience when I'm on site. But I also know that that's still putting an intense kind of amount of physiological and psychological pressure on me, and that the importance of resting and digesting and taking some time to kind of build up my resilience and my stamina for the next time is really, really important. So that's really the essence of everything that we do.
I know, Ian, you've spoken before about the importance of, preparing for an event as much as possible to be calm on site. Obviously, things can go wrong. We have, that's the nature of events. But how would you prepare for an event to be as calm on site as possible?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I think, echoing what Helen said, I mean, I stressed for 26 years. It's never been distress. I absolutely love what I do, and I'm lucky enough to work with a brilliant group of people, lead a great team, and work with some great suppliers and contractors and venues. And as a result of that, we put on some great events that our exhibitors generally love. So you can avoid the distress, I think. Not always. There's always the exceptions. But I think, to me, making sure that any pressure you have turns into the eustress rather than the distress is all about trying to control the environment that you're in. Now, that doesn't mean that you walk around saying, I'm the organiser, do you know who I am, do what I want. It's not about that at all. It's about enjoying the challenge of actually understanding what everybody does on site, what every single person plays, understanding how difficult it is for them to do their jobs, and then putting that into play in all of the months of planning before any event that you do. So, to my mind, it's about control in a participatory way. So that's easy said, and a lot of what I'm going to say sounds easier said than done. But from my point of view, it's about helping my teams in the office to understand what they're likely to see. So I think you will tend to hit problems if you hit the unexpected. When every time you go into an event, it's like a concertina. So before each event happens, I'm talking specifically for ops, but I'm sure this absolutely mirrors the same in marketing and in sales and every different environment. But within operations, we have got a significant deadline that never moves. That show never opens late. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever time your show opens on which particular morning, that deadline is never going to go. And 6 months, 8 months before the show, that's all fine because you've got everything in place and you know when you want to do everything by. But of course, the life of an event doesn't run like clockwork. Unfortunately, operations aren't the people who can walk around saying, I need this by now. You can ask, but because of customers, because of clients, and because of things that change necessarily, those deadlines that you put in place will always go back. So right up at the front of the show, you've got this concertina of deadlines all hitting, and you'll find your operations teams tearing their hair out because they're working late every night, etc., etc. And then on top of that, in the middle of this period, suddenly a salesperson comes and says, oh, there's a banner that I never told you about that I booked 6 months ago, and the client must have it, otherwise he's pulling out the show and it needs to be up by tomorrow. That sends people into a spin. But hang on, that happens all the time. So certainly with new teams that I've got, we will sit together a good month before the show and say, right, this next month is going to be busier for you. There are going to be deadlines. There are going to be nights where you're going to have to work a little bit later. There are going to be things that happen like salespeople coming up with different things. You might need to reconsolidate a plan because customers pull away from the show. You might need to enlarge a plan because you get a much better hit rate on the sales. All of these things actually are predictable. They're not all going to happen on every show, but certain ones of those will. So trying to get your teams to understand that's going to happen means that when it does happen, they're less surprised by it, and therefore it hits them in a much more constructive way. Also, you've got to do what you can for your teams back in the office. You've got to try and help the other teams around you to hit their deadlines for you. You've got a part to play as a leader within that. Also, what's really important, I think, when you get on site is the fact that it's not just about you and your team. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but your teams, your operation teams, need to understand what each of your suppliers needs. Not just, okay, what do you need? I need an exhibit list next Friday. Okay, I can do that. But why do you need it? What are you going to use it for? Why is that so important to what you do? How can I make sure that your run into the show is equally as calm and controlled, so that when you arrive on site, everybody knows what they're doing at the right time. They're not still waiting for information. They're not making stuff up as they go along. And then that gives you the space on time to sit back and calmly look at, right, that's supposed to happen now, that's supposed to happen now. It won't all happen on time. But because most things are in place and your team's feeling control, and they've not been up till midnight for the 2 weeks before the show, they're arriving on site in a much calmer and more controlled place.
And Matt, is it important to treat an event like a normal day? Obviously, we spend weeks and months preparing for an event, that's what it's all about. But how do you treat an event like a normal day?
Well, it is a normal day, and I think that's the problem. I think when we get on site, sometimes we forget that. our mantra is get everything ready. Probably the thing I hate most before we go on site is, I'll deal with that once we get on site. Don't deal with it now, because when you get on site, you're going to get the stuff that you don't know about. It'll give you time to deal with it. So when you get there, it's going to be a longer day. You haven't got the home comforts of your desk around you. You haven't always got the organisers set up how you want it, and it can be chaotic. But I think you do need to try and bring some kind of structure into the day on site, so it doesn't just become arrive at 6 o'clock, go hell for leather, and suddenly it's 9 o'clock in the evening and everyone's exhausted. We have a variety of little tricks that we use to try and make life easier. Probably one of the biggest ones that works for us is where we can, depending on our clients, and we have the luxury, I suppose, of not being the show owner, the show organizer. So we're a contractor as well. We try and push the organizer's office onto the show floor, have a desk with the contractors on a lot of our shows, and keep the organizer's office as almost like a quieter space where work can be done. If you have got a big problem, there's nothing worse when something is going quite wrong and you've got the sales team coming in with their usual requests, you've got marketing worrying about a banner, there's somebody coming in from the association who wants just a chat with the organiser. It's not a conducive atmosphere to solve a problem, and stress levels will go up. So we put the desk outside. 90% of the issues are, I don't know where my socket is, I've ordered this, it hasn't turned up. If you're sitting with your contractors, it gets resolved very quickly, keeps people calm, and then you can bring people back into the organised office then for something where it needs more of a chat, it needs a bit of quiet, it needs a bit of thinking. The other thing is again, we don't function particularly well on site when we're tired, hungry, cold, and yet we often just keep going at it and think, nowadays it's coffee. It used to be coffee and cigarettes used to keep us all going. It's not the way forward. I think the shows where we all do best are when we have our site mum on site, who's one of the team, who just takes in turns, whether it's the water monitor, the tea and coffee monitor, whether they go to the shop and buy a load of food. You wouldn't run a car for 15 hours without filling it with petrol. It would just stop. And yet we try and keep going, and then I know that my team will tell you they can see when I'm getting a little bit finger pointy and a bit stroppy. It's time to give me some food because I've just not eaten. Being hangry is not good, but we've all got our own little triggers. And when you get to know a team quite well, you can tell when that member of the team starts to get a bit quiet or that one's getting a bit snappy. And being aware of the team, especially in a senior role, being aware of the team and how they're performing is quite important, and trying to normalise the day by having a little break, having some lunch, moving it off site, stopping in the evening to get something to eat, can make a big difference to those stress levels and keep people just ticking over quite nicely to do what they're enjoying doing. But it just needs a bit of thought sometimes, and we do lose sight of it, and it's inevitable. Something kicks off, and then you lose all sense of time, and it goes. That will happen, but if you've got that kind of back office structure and somebody keeping an eye on it, it can just make things a little bit easier for people on site.
So keeping that normal structure to the day is crucial.
It's not crucial. I mean, shows get done when people are running around like idiots. However, it doesn't have to be like that, and every now and again people need to vent. Try and vent in a quiet room or outside, not vent at your clients. I certainly learnt that along the way. But you've got to just you keep the pressure. Once it starts simmering, you need to let that pressure out somewhere. Whether it's getting people off the floor, taking a break, having a cup of tea, cup of coffee. But somebody needs to be managing that, because no one wants to be seen to be the person sitting down doing nothing. And I think there's a perception as well that if you're not out on the show floor, pounding the aisles, looking at the stands, doing something, you're not doing your job properly. My view is if you're getting to that stage where you're knackered, you can't do your job properly. So the little break is not a bad thing.
And I wanted to add some science onto that, if it was all right in terms of that. So taking it back to the biology. So when we're on site, we're likely to, the sympathetic nervous system will be doing its work, and that's when adrenaline and cortisol will be in effect. So you'll have heard of the adrenaline effect. So what Matt says in terms of, as much as possible, if you can do it before you get on site, do it. The reason for that is you're more likely to be thinking more rationally, because the sympathetic nervous system, you haven't got adrenaline and cortisol in your body. When the sympathetic nervous system has been triggered, your brain is working psychologically differently. So you're less likely to have the prefrontal cortex area of your brain engaged, which means that rational, logical thought is less likely to happen. You're less likely to respond, you're more likely to react, because the area that's lit up nice and bright and shiny is your hippocampus, hypothalamus, amygdala area of the brain, which is more the primitive, emotional kind of area of the brain. That's why we react a little bit on site. That's when tempers might be frayed a little bit when the questions come in. I've got this banner, it needs to go somewhere. You might have a little bit more of a reaction to it. The other thing to understand as well is when adrenaline and cortisol are coursing through your veins, you don't necessarily want to eat as much, because your digestive system is also being hampered by that sympathetic nervous system. Because the way your brain understands it is you're being challenged, you're under threat, you need to be ready to fight, flight or freeze, okay? So you're less likely to want to eat, but your brain needs its fuel. Your brain needs a constant supply of glucose to be able to function properly, okay? 75% of your food is needed by your brain alone in terms of your nutrition. If it doesn't get its glucose source, it will look for it by the nearest, quickest possible way, which is biscuits, chocolate, coffee. Caffeine, by the way, is synthetic cortisol. It behaves in the body in exactly the same way as cortisol. So if you're already stressed and you're relying on coffee, you're just making yourself more stressed, guys. So try and hamper the caffeine intake. Try and leave it no longer than 4 hours eating something. Put protein bars, snacks, nut bars, that kind of thing in your pocket, a packet of nuts in your pocket that you can nibble on. Graze if you can. When I'm on site, I can't actually sit down and eat a lunch. It's too much because my digestive system is being hampered, but I know I graze. So healthy nut bars, fruit. That's why in our quiet rooms we always put water, decaf teas and coffees, energy bars. They always have the healthy kind of snacks that people can just come in and help themselves to. Okay, so have a think about that, and then just appreciate that science a little bit, and then that, you know, taking those regular breaks, like Matt said. But you're gonna behave very differently from a psychological and from a physiological aspect on site to how you are off site. So, okay, so it's just bearing those little things in mind.
I think the other day you said something about, like, it's about putting your own oxygen mask on first, which I thought was quite a good quote. It's about looking after yourself. But how do you kind of model these good behaviours to the rest of the team as a senior member of your team? What are the kind of good behaviours that you're modelling for the rest of your team to follow?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, my good behaviours, I think, have just been dispelled. I definitely smoke and I definitely drink lots of coffee. I think each of us have our own reaction and the way that we work. I'm definitely driven. I hate using the word stress because, to me, I think everybody likens it or always goes to distress when they hear the word stress, and it's not. And that's what Helen was saying earlier. So from my point of view, I think it's about keeping a calm head. I mean, I'm fortunate now. Yeah, I've been around for a while, so I've done a lot of the roles and a lot of the tasks that my teams are doing. And I've got a really great team, so when I'm on site, you've got to be careful not to tread on their toes. So I get a lot of opportunity to walk around and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes. But that in itself is, I think it's a reassurance to the team. I think from a leadership point of view, you have to act the values that you want your team to act. So if you've got problems on site, it's about staying calm. It's about remembering that, you know, we're not. I'm forever telling my team, again, I sort of mentioned the whole sort of, like, there's a stereotypical "do you know who I am" thing. There are organisers who walk around demanding, "you must do this now," and it's sort of, well, you never asked me to do that in the first place. You never briefed me on that. How could I possibly have read your mind? That's not how organisers should work. As far as I'm concerned, an organiser is a telephone operator. We put people in contact who've got problems with people who've got the solutions, and being very explicit, treating everyone with respect on site, and making sure that you're saying thank you to your runners, making sure that any time you walk past a security guard, you're saying thank you, asking them how the day's going, being in contact with people and letting your team see you do that, I think allows for everybody to have the space to A, do their own jobs, and to feel trusted in doing it, but also to see that you're in a calm space and in control. It just allows that to emanate across the whole group. So I think you have to lead by example, and you have to be there when an unforeseen challenge does come up. So yes, the point of me being on site isn't just to waste another lot of money on a hotel room. Actually, when the larger challenges come up, being able to bring experience but not do it on your own. You do it alongside your team and you discuss with them. So if we've got a problem in a certain area, you've always just got to feel okay about, it's very rare you have to make a decision like that. Even if you've got I hate to use the word, but if you've got a stand collapse or something like that, it's done. Nothing is going to be different unless there's obviously a medical situation to deal with, so you snap into that. But there's never an occasion where you need to make a split-second decision. So your team need to see you sort of, right, okay, well, we've got a problem with this. Who's going to be able to help me with it? Right, well, that skill, they're the people who are going to inform me as to what the decisions that need to be made, the knock-on effects of one decision versus another. And I think as an experienced person on site, that's how you lead your team. You just allow them to see you being calm, and that sort of helps them to get there.
And I think it's not just on site. When we go to a show, we're away for 3, 4, 5, 10, much longer on some of the large shows. I think you need to remember that once the doors are closed, we've gone back to the hotel. People want to do different things. It's very easy to be going for a drink at the bar. Bear in mind that not everyone might want to go for a drink at the bar. They might want to get back to their room, have a quiet night, phone the family. And I think it's not getting involved in the peer pressure game. That's where, as the senior members of the team should be leading it. I know that there's one of my clients, they know that I will go to the bar and get a jug of milk and go upstairs and have a cup of tea when I'm on site, and they rip me for it because they're all 20. But they're the ones who are going home early. I'm still there when they've all gone back, and that's what I do for me. I'm quite boring now. But I think you've got to be aware that when you've got an 18-year-old starting with you, they are not going to want to, if you say to them, should we go to the bar for a drink, they've done their first day on site, they're probably absolutely knackered, they probably just want to go and curl up in a ball in the bed. But if you as their team leader say to them, let's go to the bar for a drink, they're going to be very, very scared of saying no. They're not going to know what's the right thing to do. And all you're doing is compounding the problem. This person is going to probably get a bit overexcited, have too much to drink, be tired the next day, start functioning badly. You'll start looking at them thinking, they're not performing very well. And I think it's being aware of your team and your colleagues. When you've worked with people for a long time, a lot of these things sort of kind of go unsaid. You know how people are, you know how they react. Particularly with the new members of the team, you've got to. It's an odd environment. Going on site for a show is an odd environment the first time, and it can be an odd environment the 50th time and the 100th time. Be aware of your team. It doesn't have to be. They're not letting you down if they don't want to come out. They're not letting you down if they don't want to come for the client drinks. They might just want to do the job well, or they might not be coping. And I think that's, again, and it encourages the stress. Then you start getting cross with them, because then I think it should be very aware. It's not something I was aware of, for many years, because I just didn't care. I just did it and could cope with it. It was fine. But far more aware of it now, and I think it's you still see it with again, as the observer looking in, you still see some of our clients who insist on everyone doing it, and it becomes this kind of thing that everyone has to do. They like it most of the time, but you can see the ones who are struggling as well, and you can't really intervene as the outsider, but with your own team, you should be aware of it.
I completely agree with that. I mean, unfortunately, Matt and myself have been around for long enough that when we started, it was an expectation to be out. But to be fair, I was really happy about that, because I'm much more likely to be in the bar late than early. But people have changed, and the expectations of especially the younger generation coming in. God, I feel like a granddad now. I should stop saying stuff like that. But they don't want to go to the bar every night. They do want to go to the gym. Go to the gym. I don't think I've ever been to the gym in my life, but these guys want to go to the gym after 10 hours on site. We always brief our teams now when they're going on site, whether they're new or whether they've been with us 5 years. We're on site for 9-10 days, sometimes more, sometimes less. You do not need to come out after work. If you just want to go back to your room at any point, whether it's me, whether it's the managing director has turned up, whether it's a customer, whether it's a contractor taking us out for dinner, you never need to say, Yes, and you never need to have a drink in there. You can come to the bar if you want, and you can feel free to have a soft drink. But you've actually got to say that stuff.
Because if we're talking about stress, this is
You've gotta say it.
we're not if we're not careful, you're putting the work stress, getting the show done it can be enough for some people. These personal elements of stress on top of it, if we can avoid them, it's a good thing.
And we're all very different, and we're all very individual. None of us are robots, you know. We're all unique characters in ourselves, and we all have our own creature comforts, and we all have our own things that bring us joy. So I tend to say, when people come to me for advice, what can I do on site? I kind of say, have an on-site kit. It's almost like you have a rucksack that's permanently packed for every time you go on site. So get some things in it for your hotel room. You know, a favourite book that you want to read, put it in your bag and take it on site with you, so in your room, have that as that time to go and read that book that you want to read. So anybody with partners and people at home, this will help you sleep, kind of get their sense, their smell in a little perfume aromatizer, do you call it, little thing? Get some of that, you can squirt it on the pillow. It will help you, that smell of someone close to you will help you to drop off when you're on your own in the room. I think that's one of the things I struggle with, missing my husband and my daughter when I'm away. So there's little things like that. So I've got a fidget with me today. So get some fidgets in there. I have loops in my bag because I'm neurodivergent myself. I'm autistic and ADHD. So, you know, make sure you've got your loops with you. Look those up. You can put those in. You can still hear perfectly clear, but it will help you to focus. You know, fidgets, anything like that. We all have foods that we enjoy. So bringing it back to the diet, kind of. So Matt was mentioning on the call, you know, if there's a microwave, I love mac and cheese. So, you know, get your favourite food, get it in the microwave so you can eat something that you enjoy when you're on site. We know how difficult it can be to find the things we enjoy when we're in a strange X-hall or a conference centre or away from home. So just get some creature comforts kind of stuff. Make yourself a playlist with your favourite songs on it. So if you've been in a situation, but Ian's very right in terms of that. You don't have to make a decision if something goes wrong straight away. It could be like, I need you to give me 15, 20 minutes. I just need to clear my head. Go away and put your playlist on for 15, 20 minutes. It'll allow that parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. You're more likely then to think logically about what you're going to do rather than react. Then you can go back. You make that, the idea will come to you. Get yourself away from the situation, a little bit of peace and quiet, and then the idea will come to you in terms of how you're going to respond to it. So it's, you know, think about your on-site kit. What you're going to put in your rucksack, what's going to bring you those comforts kind of stuff. Everybody has vices. I love dairy milk. I don't do anything else. Nobody's taking my chocolate and my sugar off me, thank you very much. So I always make sure I've got a bar of dairy milk with me. Right? So have a think, those things, it's the things that bring you joy and stuff, and then especially when you need them the most. So have a think about that.
I think that's a good way to finish. Fortunately, we've got to wrap up. That's flown by. But yeah, thank you very much for coming, and thanks guys for speaking. I'll catch you in a bit. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.